Hi, I'm Cole Krasny from Woodbridge, Virginia in the USA. Today I'm going to talk about synthesis and the 5 most important modules in a synthesizer.
The fundamentals of synthesis are built up with 5 modules that are all connected to one another to create the sounds that a synthesizer emits or composes. These 5 modules are the voltage-controlled oscillator, the voltage-controlled filter, the voltage-controlled amplifier, the low-frequency oscillator, and an envelope. The first module, our VCO, or voltage controlled oscillator, is different from just a normal oscillator in that it doesn't just produce a simple test tone, but can be modulated to change over time. Since it's the oscillator, it has the ability to change frequency. An example, a keyboard synthesizer. The keys on the keyboard is what modulates the frequencies of the oscillator. The VCO creates a sound that's based off of geometric waveforms. These waveforms can be sine waves, sawtooth waves, square waves, triangle waves, or noise, or more specifically white noise, which is a bunch of frequencies being distributed at once across the frequency spectrum. It gets its name because the color white is composed of all colors, and it's all of the frequencies, so it makes sense. Actually, all of the waves get their names because of the way they are shaped. If you take a moment to analyze the way they look, like a sawtooth looking like a saw blade, and etc. The different waveforms are what helps create the sounds of different instruments. Like the square has more of a hollow sound because it's missing all of the even number partials and is better for representing a clarinet directly from the way its reed works, and the sawtooth has all of the partials and is more full and would be better representing a violin, from the way the string pulls to one direction and then snaps back. The second module is the VCF, or voltage controlled filter. These filters are not really much different from the filters used on an EQ plugin, but in a synthesizer, the low-pass filter, also known as the high cut, becomes the most important type of filter because it reduces or cuts out those high-end waveforms, which tend to be obnoxiously bright and very extreme in a synthesizer to the point where they have to be removed completely. Most synthesizers allow you to change their filter shape to become high-pass or bandpass filters, but the 24 decibel low-pass filter is the most important and most common. Like the oscillator, it can be modulated. The most important parameter that tends to be modulated in a filter is the filter cutoff. It can give a kind of sweeping sound from bright to dull, or dull to bright, or even a wah-wah kind of sound, which is simply created by the filter changing over time. Kind of like if you were to sing a single, steady-pitched note and moved your mouth around really oddly. It doesn't affect the original pitch of the sound, but kind of filters it before leaving your mouth. And then there's resonance, which when added, it emphasizes the cutoff frequency, allowing for that peak that you create at that cutoff to be very obvious when swept over. The third module is the VCA, or voltage controlled amplifier. Different from our amplifying or gain stages all throughout our signal flow, the VCA is designed to move all of the time, and to be able to do it very quickly and repetitively. The modulator of a VCA is an envelope, which is our fourth module I wanted to talk about. They're both very interconnected with one another. An envelope is kind of like a set movement of the sound that the VCA follows every time a note is played. If you think of a guitar string being played, the note is strummed, the sound quickly shoots up and then falls down, rings out for a while, and then eventually diminishes at the end of the note. That is what the envelope emulates. It works in a way exactly like our compressors, limiters, expanders, and gates do. The amp creates a voltage to control the VCA, voltage controlled amplifier, in that plugin. Anyway, we use 4 terms to describe the path of an envelope: attack time, decay time, sustain level, and release time. Attack time is how long it takes for the initial sound to shoot up and reach its set peak. Decay time is how long it takes for that sound to drop to the set level that the sound will continue at. Sustain level is that set level or volume that it will stay at. And then release time is how long it will take for the note to drop off to negative infinity decibels full scale. The higher you increase the time on all of them, the longer it will take for those sounds to ramp up or down to the specified value drawn by the envelope, excluding the sustain because it's a set level and not time. So remember, the envelope is what modulates the amplifier, the VCA, and gives it motion. The fifth synthesizer module is the LFO, or low frequency oscillator. It too is a modulator just like the envelope, except instead of it modulating the VCA, voltage controlled amplifier, it actually modulates the VCO, the voltage controlled oscillator, which is what produces the sound. Instead of following a set path like an envelope, it has a cyclic characteristic, graphed as a kind of wave, very back and forth, and that's because it actually is producing a sound wave. But it's so low that it's below the human hearing range, that 20 Hz range. So you aren't hearing the direct output of the LFO, but how it affects the VCO, the voltage controlled oscillator. What it does is it gives it a vibrato effect, a kind of waver in pitch back and forth. In a more complex synth, you could make it have more realistic amplitude and timbre variations like a human singing a note with a vibrato by making the cutoff frequency of the filter a destination of the LFO modulation, and the amplitude of the VCA a destination of the LFO modulation as well. So there aren't really any fixed rules when it comes to setting destinations of these modulations, you see. You can be as creative as you want and even set multiple destinations for these modulations. This wraps up my summary of the 5 fundamental modules of a synthesizer. I hope you enjoyed.